Parents, this next story contains language you may not want your child to hear. It's an important story, though, because it deals with child sex abuse. Every 9 minutes in this country, a child falls victim to sex abuse. 1 out of every 3 of those assaults is done by a family member. Melissa Johnson became a victim in 2015. Her abuser, her father. For 3 years, he forced her regularly to have sex. Again, we do want to warn you, parents. This story contains language of what happened to Melissa. She hopes it will help another girl realize that what they may think is normal is not. Here's Melissa's story. Melissa Johnson will never forget the beginning of the summer in 2015. The 12-year-old was outside playing with her siblings.
And I was wearing these bright pink leggings and just a random shirt, and I noticed I had started my monthly cycle for the first time.
That was expected. Most girls start their periods at 12. What happened next was not.
My father took me into his room and he said, "Take your pants and underwear off," and then he would put his finger inside of me.
He told her he needed to make sure it was her period.
I thought it was normal.
But her father had started showing signs that he wanted her to be more than daddy's little girl.
He would always have me sit on his lap, and when I would sit on his lap, I could tell that he was aroused.
That summer day was a prelude to a 3-year living nightmare. It would become a ritual. Her dad forcing her to have sexual intercourse.
It would happen basically every single night.
On the outside, no one had a clue.
I played a perfect double life for 3 years. I mean, I had friends at school. Like, school was my double life. I would get on the bus and immediately be this different person. I was happy. The first time it happened, I would pass out, and then I came to, and then I threw up, and he had me in the bathroom and he cleaned me off, and he carried me back to his bed.
Melissa says she passed out because she was drunk and drugged. She says her dad and her mom were all behind it.
Every Friday, it was like their party day. They would get drunk, and so they encouraged me to get drunk with them.
She says her mother always had an abundance of muscle relaxers. She says her dad would often drug her with those to have sex.
So he would give me 4 of those on top of 2 double-strength sleeping pills.
Melissa says her mother knew what was happening behind closed doors, but never did anything about it.
She caught him multiple times.
She says her mom was out a lot and not at home when it happened. Her siblings were usually asleep.
I mean, it was just me and him locked in his room.
The father she loved was now a monster. She wanted to say something, but couldn't.
He would just say, like, if you tell anybody, I'm not going to make it to the prison because I'm going to kill myself before they get to me.
It was when her baby sister came to her to say her father was doing bad things to her.
And so I would tell her, the stuff that was happening to me, and I would reassure her, saying, I'm going to get us out of here. I'm going to fix it. It's going to stop.
One day in 2018, 3 years after it all started, she had what she calls her moment.
Last day of summer before my sophomore year of high school, and I was at my grandma's house, his mom, and I was hanging out with my cousin, and we were going out for a walk, and I was battling in my head, tell her, because you're going to go back today, like, you're going back home today.
She confided in her cousin.
I was just like, my dad's touching me inappropriately, and so she was like, we have to tell Grandma.
So they did.
We were all in her backyard in like a circle, and she was like, so what's going on? And I said, Well, Dad's doing inappropriate things to me, and she didn't say anything. She didn't look surprised.
The grandmother decided to confront her son, so she took the kids to his house and did just that. The kids were outside. What happened next was unexpected.
We saw him step out on the front porch and he was on the phone, and we would find out that he had called the cops on himself.
Sean Edward Johnson was arrested, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to a minimum of 37 years. Coming up on WECT News at 6, a new life, a new love, with a warning. Continuing Melissa's story now, after Sean Johnson was convicted and sent to prison for sexually abusing his daughter for 3 years, Melissa Johnson wanted a new life. She got one.
Our house was filthy. I didn't want to be in it anymore.
Melissa Johnson wanted out of the house she grew up in Hampstead. It wasn't a home. Her mother, she says, was heavily into drugs, so she and her siblings moved in with her aunt in Chatham County. Melissa got a job at a restaurant. That's where she met John Fain.
I was attracted to him. I thought he looked really good.
The two were immediately attracted to each other, but Melissa had a past she needed and wanted to share.
Before anything serious happened, I just wanted to establish this is what had happened to me.
The two took it very slowly. They were just friends in the beginning.
Yeah.
This is definitely half a year to 9 months, probably around there. And then we started spending more time together outside of work. We would sit in the car, just kind of have conversations, talk about things, get to know each other.
Melissa told John everything.
So at first I was just mad and extremely saddened for her, but pretty quickly I could kind of get past that and see through that and see more of who she is and the strong person that she is and what kind of a fighter it takes to even get through something like that and be able to live a normal life after that. I think it's completely amazing.
The two have been together now for 2 years. Both admit Melissa's past doesn't just go away. John, who describes himself as very protective of Melissa, says he'll always be mindful of what her father did to her.
Yes, I think I always will be.
I'm still dealing with it. I still have thoughts about it. I still have flashbacks about it.
Melissa did try clinical therapy, but she says it simply didn't work for her, at least not from the counselor she met with there. She does believe counseling helps and has gotten it from an unusual source, the detective who investigated her case. It was Detective Sergeant Steve Kleinert with the Pender County Sheriff's Office who suggested she share her story.
We were trying to find solutions that might help her out. She had sought therapy at one point, and it just didn't seem to be working. And to me, it felt like she needed to tell her story.
He and Melissa hope her story will reach other victims and inspire them to report their abuse. Jason Smith, the assistant district attorney who prosecuted the Sean Johnson case, also believes Melissa's story could help other victims realize once they report their abusers, they go away for a very long time.
He wouldn't have called himself in unless Melissa came forward. He'll be in until he's 80 years old.
It took Melissa 3 years to find what she calls her moment. Her mission now is to help others find theirs.
Find the moment, because you could have chances. I had so many chances to say something. I could have told my neighbor. I could have told people at school. I could have told so many people. I didn't have to do that anymore. I didn't have to be lifeless. I didn't have to live a double life. I didn't have to be fake. I mean, I could try to restart my childhood. So for me, it was just the moment and just the knowing of I was going to be free.
If you or someone you know is being sexually abused, be it a father or someone else, don't live with that secret. Tell someone. And there is help. The Rape Crisis Center at Coastal Horizons is available 24 hours. You can call right now. You can find that information inside this story. It's called Melissa's Story on WECT.com.